Hi everyone, this is meteorologist Joel Curtis with your Alaska Weather TV show. Welcome. First of all, I'm going to show a couple of slides of pictures around. Here's Coalfoot this afternoon at 1:23 p.m. and looks wintry, nice clear skies and long shadows. And then we're looking at Dutch Harbor, looking toward the southwest. And typical Bering Sea with a few low clouds and lots of high clouds. Not a whole lot of wind going on there in Dutch. And then we have AKwx with increasing clouds with a weather system that's coming up from the south. So here's our weather headlines for today. There are no warnings or advisories. We've got a few strong winds in a few areas of southeast tonight and Tuesday. Also, we have a possible light snow in southeast Alaska. And what's unusual is we might get a little bit in the south before it gets to the north into Tuesday. Also, seasonable temperatures for most of the mainland for a whole week, and the outlooks look seasonable but dry for much of the state. So looking at our satellite imagery today, you see that big weather system coming up from Haida Gwaii. It's approaching, it's going to be off of Dixon Entrance there. Also, we have a weather system out by AKwx, and that's moving a little bit toward the east, pretty slowly there, but a front wrapped around it. Also, lots of shower activity out over the Gulf of Alaska. I looked earlier to see if there was any lightning, but there isn't any lightning today in any of those cells. So here's today's weather, and as you can see, a 977 millibar low with a little warm air out in front of it. The fronts are getting ready to wrap up and curl around that low. We have some rain out in front of it. Vancouver Island's getting some pretty heavy rain. Up on the north slope, a little onshore flow with a couple of leads open, so that's giving some ample moisture there for a little bit of light snow. And then we have that 995 millibar low down by AKwx, a front wrapped around it, rain out ahead of it, showers behind it. Then for tonight's weather, the low forms, and you can see the front finally wraps around the low, 964 millibars. That's a fairly moderate depth on a low. Lots of offshore flow out ahead of it, but still enough to maybe get a little bit of light snow that we talked about earlier. Also still onshore flow up on the north slope for a little bit of light snow. And then that system is very, very slowly moving out in the Bering Sea up against a ridge of high pressure, a little snow out in front of it. And then for Tuesday's weather, that low has pretty much stalled there off of Dixon Entrance. And as you can see, the snow has moved inland into BC and Yukon Territory. Still a little bit of snow out ahead of it, a few lines on the map for a bit of wind, mainly in the Skagway area. And as you can see, a trough extending out back over the Gulf. Also the onshore flow up on the north slope. And then we have 993 millibar low. It's pretty well moved east just a few miles. Again, fairly stagnant and slow moving system, but a little bit of light snow out ahead of it, all the way to the Alaska Peninsula, almost to Nunivak Island, and of course the Pribilofs. And then we have some showers in behind that, and a little bit of mixed precipitation out in front of it. And then for Wednesday, all of those lows dissipate and reabsorb into a system forming well to the south. So I put the low pressure down there for 988 millibars. That's going to be a pesky kind of a weather system where a lot of smaller lows form on that system, and they rotate around in the Gulf of Alaska. So those systems will bring weather off and on to southeast. And then as you can see already, You've got a lot of snow that's already formed all along the Gulf Coast on over into southwest Alaska, including the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and even into the Aleutians, even though there's a rather large high pressure system over the far western Bering Sea. So let's take a look at our low temperatures for Tuesday morning. 20s and 30s for southeast Alaska, 22 for Yakutat. And then as we get up to Gulkana, Glen Ellyn area, -8 degrees, but down at Valdez, plus 20, and then in the teens, getting up to the lower 20s as you get further down south in the Kenai Peninsula, 29 for Kodiak. For our high temperatures Tuesday afternoon, you can see 40s on up or on down to 32 degrees freezing at Skagway, 37 for Yakutat, a plus 10 for Gulkana, 26 for Valdez. And then as you get over into South Central, 26 for Anchorage, 27 for Kenai, and 38 for Homer. And then for our low temperatures Wednesday morning, you can see almost right around 40 or so when you get to Ketchikan, 34 for Prince of Wales Island, 26 for Yakutat, -12 for Gulkana, and then in the teens and lower 20s is the South Central. And then 40 degrees for our high temperatures Wednesday afternoon in the lower 40s for the southern panhandle, but still in the 30s as you get further north. Also 6 for Glen Ellyn, 31 for Valdez, 19 for Talkeetna, and 25 for Kenai, but up to 39 for Kodiak. And then for our low temperatures Wednesday morning, again, about 40 or so at far southeast. But then look at those 20s as you get further north, 26 for Yakutat, -12 for Gulkana, 18 for Valdez, and then 16 for Anchorage, 9 for Talkeetna, and 21 for Homer, 27 for Kodiak. And our high temperatures Wednesday afternoon in the 40s for southern southeast, but still in the 30s as you get further north, 6 for Glen Ellyn, 31 for Valdez, 24 for Anchorage, and 39 for Homer. And then as we look north here, single digits all along the north slope, but then as you get further south, that cold air is really trapped Tuesday morning, and you see a lot of negative single digits and even down to -11 for Tanana, and then as -8 for Fairbanks, and then 3 for Kotzebue. So then, as we look along the north slope for our high temperatures Tuesday afternoon, we've still got in the teens, single digits for our highs just over the Brooks Range. And then we get up about to 10 to Fairbanks and 16 for Dome. And then for low temperatures Wednesday morning, again, a few single digits in the north slope, but look at those really cool temperatures now that we've got trapped between the Alaska Range and the Brooks Range. And then high temperatures Wednesday afternoon, again, some teens along the north slope, but single digits in a lot of interior locations. And then for the southwest, we're looking at temperatures in the 20s as you go out the Alaska Peninsula, and 30s into the Bering Sea, 27 for the Pribilofs, but still a few single digits in southwest Alaska. And then as we get to our high temperatures, teens for Dillingham, as we get down to Cold Bay, 35, 40s as you go out the Aleutian, 35 for St. Paul, and then looks like about a 12 for Brethel. And then for our low temperatures Wednesday morning, we've got, again, in the 20s as you go out the Alaska Peninsula and the Pribilofs, but 30s as you get further west. And then look at those single digits that we have in southwest Alaska. And then our highs in the teens as you go inland and then get down to single digits, but in the 20s and then going into the 30s as you go further west. I just wanted to show you a snapshot of the wind flow on next Monday afternoon. Cold northerly flow at 18,000 feet moving over much of the state and into southeast Alaska. So our 6 to 10 day forecast for the 14th to the 18th is below normal temperatures for much of the state. and then below normal precipitation. So we're looking like cold and dry for as we get out into our 8 to 14, November 16th to November 22nd. Again, below normal temperatures, and also below normal precipitation as that high hangs further to the east. Well, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and we appreciate you watching.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and now for your aviation weather. Starting out with the flying weather Tuesday morning, we have a little bit of IFR over the Yukon Flats, as well as some areas of IFR off of Dixon Entrance with that system approaching southeast, some marginal VFR over southwest Alaska, as well as some IFR over the western Bering Sea associated with that next system moving up. For Tuesday afternoon, we have some IFR over the Chukchi Sea, as well as some marginal VFR all along the North Slope, all the way down to St. Lawrence Island, marginal VFR for the Gulf of Alaska and southwest Alaska, and then we have that area of IFR out ahead of that system approaching and covering all of the Aleutian Islands. For Wednesday morning, we have areas of marginal VFR all along the Gulf Coast, as well as southwest Alaska and up to the Pribilos, also for the North Slope and St. Lawrence Island, and one area of IFR approaching the Alaska Peninsula out ahead of that system. For our flying weather Wednesday afternoon, we do have some IFR all along the North Slope, as well as the eastern Brooks Range. Also a couple of areas over the higher terrain for IFR Wednesday afternoon for southeast Alaska. And then for our coastal areas for the Gulf and the Bering Sea, we have areas of marginal VFR on up into Cook Inlet. For our pass conditions, Tuesday, Anatovik VFR, Anigan Pass VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill Pass VFR with some marginal VFR to the west, Rainy Pass VFR, Windy Pass VFR, Isabel Pass VFR, Mentasta Pass VFR, Tahitna Pass VFR, Portage Pass VFR with some marginal VFR well to the south. For Chilkoot and White Pass, VFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon and windy with some turbulence. For freezing levels on Tuesday morning at the surface for most of the state, including the Panhandle and down into southwestern Alaska. However, we do have some warm air out over the central Aleutians with a freezing level up to 2,000 feet and a band of 2,000 foot freezing level that has moved over southeast Alaska out ahead of that system approaching Dixon Entrance. For icing on Tuesday, we have one area of isolated moderate covering all of southeast Alaska on up to Yakutat between 1,000 and 3,000 feet, and most of the Bering Sea, including the Pribilos, southwestern Alaska and the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, an area of isolated moderate between 2,000 and 10,000 feet. For jet stream on Tuesday, we do have most of the bands of the really strong jet at jet level are either well to the west or well to the south of the state. However, we do have 125 knot northerlies over the far western Aleutians, some easterlies up to 70 knots from the Beaufort Sea on down across the Brooks Range and into Norton Sound and then out into the Bering Sea. Also, we have some southwesterly 65 knots over the central Gulf Coast, and that's moving up into Canada. For our 9,000 foot winds on Tuesday, we have three areas of circulation causing some easterlies all the way down from the North Slope through Norton Sound, about 35 to 40 knots. Also, we have a circulation over the around that system in the Aleutians, and that's about northeasterlies 40 knots as you get into the far western Aleutians. We also have some offshore winds coming off the Alaska Peninsula, about 30 knots or so. And then we have that circulation in southeast that's up to about 50 knots in Dixon Entrance. For 3,000 foot winds on Tuesday, again, that circulation in the Bering Sea, all the way up to 60 knots on the backside, but mostly easterlies about 40 knots or so. A small band of easterly 40 knots across the central interior and also along the North Slope. And then we have that circulation in southeast Alaska. We've got some 50 knot or so easterlies right around the eastern part of Dixon Entrance. And then for our turbulence on Tuesday, we do have some over Kotzebue Sound as well as into the Brooks Range, surface of 5,000 feet. We do have some considerable moderate for the western Aleutians below 4,000 feet, and then surface of 6,000 feet with low-level wind shear for southeast Alaska. So fly safe out there, and everybody remember to file a flight plan. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
okay,
since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm is white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, that'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice?
Ah.
All three of these are white. The
Right.
snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud?
Right.
How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got you know, a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice?
Okay.
It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at.
Oh, okay.
Part of that's visible light, what we
Right.
see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back.
Okay.
And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that.
Okay.
And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful.
Oh,
And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble, and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
It'd be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum, but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but has to avoid the sea ice. this product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Right? Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Denali. We can see the shadow of Denali over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Denali at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, everyone, and now for your marine segment. Starting out with our sea ice edge, I've got two slides to show today. Lots of new growth as far south as Nushagak Bay, a lot of new young ice all along the west coast. Kotzebue Sound is 7/10 covered, and the Beaufort Sea opened up a little bit, but the Chukchi Sea is really closing up now. And as we can see in our next slide, you can see the advancement all the way down into southwestern Alaska. For our marine forecast, starting out for Tuesday for southeast, northerlies 35 gusting to 50 in Lynn Canal, and gale force 35 southeasterlies in Clarence Strait. A lot of offshore on the outside, up to 35 knots, and seas up to 14 feet. For Wednesday, however, things really back off. On the inside water, winds 15 knots, and seas all the way up to 8 feet in Clarence Strait. And then as we get on the outside, seas up to 8 feet and winds ranging 15 to 20 knots. For South Central, we've got offshore flow. Look out for Copper River gust out to 40, seas up to 7 feet on the outside, 20 knots and 4 foot in the Prince William Sound area, and generally northerlies in Cook Inlet, 10 to 15 knots and seas up to 4 feet. But on Wednesday, things really switch up. Now we've got a southerly regime, winds 15 to 20 knots on the outside, seas up to 8 feet. And then for Cook Inlet, we have northeasterlies 15 all the way up to 25 knots as you get down toward Augustine, and seas up to 7 feet. For Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island waters, real mixed bag on wind directions, winds ranging 10 to 20 knots, seas up to 4 feet on the Pacific side and only 2 feet on the Bering Sea side. But then when we get to Wednesday, you can start to see some circulation, and the wind is ranging 15 to 20 knots on both sides. Seas up to 7 feet on the Pacific side and up to 4 feet on the Bering Sea side. And then for the Aleutian chain, real mixed bag in the circulation around that low pressure system. Whole gale force, 45 knots northwesterlies and seas 18 feet in the far western Aleutians. But then as you get further into the central and eastern Aleutians, winds are ranging about 20 to 25 knots, seas up to 9 feet on the Bering Sea side and up to 12 feet on the Pacific side. And then the northerlies take over on Wednesday. Northerly direction, all areas, winds ranging 25 all the way up to 30 knots. And then we've got seas 10 feet on the Bering Sea side and 11 feet on the Pacific side. For the west coast, generally offshore flow, winds ranging 15 to 20 knots, seas up to 7 feet out by St. Matthew, 5 feet up by the Pribilofs, otherwise around 3 to 4 feet or so. And then Wednesday, again, the northerlies are really starting to take over, winds 15 to 20 knots and seas ranging up to 5 feet. And then for the Arctic coast, we have the generally easterlies and northeasterlies, winds along the north slope 15 to 20 knots. Most of it's ice covered, but seas up to 8 feet off of Point Hope. And then winds back off a little bit as you get down toward the Bering Strait with the seas only 4 feet. And then for Wednesday's forecast, again, northeasterlies and easterlies, wind easterly 25 knots and seas 8 feet off of Point Hope. Otherwise, 15 to 20 knots, mostly ice covered and seas up to 4 feet. So looking at Tuesday's weather, again, we have that 983 millibar low just off of Dixon Entrance, Sterling Park there. Some snow out ahead of it and rain in behind it. And then we have the low near Atka, about 993 millibars and a front wrapped around it too. And then for Wednesday's weather, we've got a developing system. All those lows have reconsolidated south of the Gulf of Alaska down to a 998 millibar low and the front wrapped around it. And then eventually we got some snow over the central portion of the state. And we also have some lots of rain over the Gulf and the Aleutians. Keep a weather eye out there, and thanks for tuning in.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.